Meghan Markle's journey began far away from the cobblestone courtyards of Windsor and the marble corridors of Buckingham Palace. She was born in the golden warmth of Los Angeles, California, on August 4, 1981, a city where dreams and illusions often blur together. Her father, Thomas Markle, worked behind the scenes in television as a lighting director, while her mother, Doria Ragland, was a yoga instructor and social worker. Their love gave Meghan a childhood rich in creativity and compassion. Yet, as a biracial child, half white, half African American, she quickly learned that the world didn't always see people as equals. Her parents separated when she was young, and she spent her days moving between two homes, two cultures, and two versions of herself. But she was never bitter. Her mother's grace taught her patience and empathy. Her father's career introduced her to the magic of storytelling, the glow of studio lights, the quiet focus behind a camera lens. From those experiences, Meghan began to dream. She didn't dream of crowns or palaces, but of telling stories that mattered, of becoming someone whose voice could reach beyond herself. In a world that often placed limits on young women like her, Meghan chose to imagine a bigger one. And that imagination would one day lead her to a destiny far beyond Hollywood. Meghan's early life was shaped by curiosity and ambition. At Northwestern University in Illinois, she studied both theater and international relations, a combination that reflected her two sides, the artist and the advocate. She was fascinated by how stories could influence hearts and change perspectives. When she graduated, she packed her bags and returned to Los Angeles to chase her dream of acting. But Hollywood is not kind to those who don't fit its narrow mold. Casting directors told her she was not white enough for any role, not black enough for another. Her skin tone, her hair, her very identity became an obstacle. Still, Meghan refused to surrender. She took small jobs, teaching calligraphy, working part-time, and auditioning endlessly. At night, she would sit at her small kitchen table, handwriting letters to producers, believing that persistence could open doors that talent alone could not. Slowly, the doors began to open. Commercials, guest roles, and small appearances built her confidence. Through it all, she kept her sense of grace, never loud, never desperate, always poised. Friends recalled her optimism and discipline, her belief that you can be kind and still be strong. Hollywood tested her, but it also refined her. It taught her how to handle scrutiny, how to stay composed under pressure, lessons that would soon prove invaluable when she stepped into a very different spotlight. In 2011, after years of quiet perseverance, Meghan finally found her moment. She was cast as Rachel Zane, a bright, determined paralegal in the television drama Suits. The role transformed her life. The show became an international success, filmed in Toronto and watched by millions across the world. Viewers adored Rachel's confidence, intelligence, and elegance, and in many ways, Rachel reflected the woman Meghan had always been. For Meghan, it wasn't just about fame, it was about representation. She was proud to play a mixed-race woman on-screen, a character whose background was acknowledged but not defined by race. Off-screen, Meghan began using her growing platform to speak about gender equality, diversity, and self-worth. Her humanitarian heart started to shine. She volunteered at UN Women, wrote essays on identity, and began traveling for charity. Yet despite her growing fame, she remained grounded. She enjoyed quiet evenings cooking at home, practicing yoga, and walking her dogs through the streets of Toronto. Fame had not changed her spirit, it had only given her a microphone. Still, she had no idea that her next role would be one the world would never stop watching, the role of a lifetime, but one without a script. It was a summer evening in 2016 when fate quietly turned the page of Meghan's life. A mutual friend arranged a casual blind date in London between Meghan and Prince Harry. Neither expected much. Harry was the world's most eligible bachelor, charming, adventurous, but weary of fame. Meghan was successful, independent, and content in her own right. Yet when they met, something extraordinary happened. There was an instant ease between them, a shared laughter that came naturally. Harry later admitted, "The moment I saw her, I knew I was in trouble." Their connection wasn't about titles or wealth, it was about empathy, humor, and understanding. They talked for hours, discovering a shared passion for helping others and for living with purpose beyond privilege. After that evening, they began meeting privately, away from the flashing cameras. In those early days, they were just two ordinary souls, a man and a woman falling quietly in love. Meghan once described it as a beautiful surprise. For Harry, she was unlike anyone he had ever met, confident yet kind, independent yet deeply compassionate. That chance encounter would grow into one of the most talked about love stories of the modern age. For the next few months, Harry and Meghan lived a love story hidden from the public eye. They met in secret, exchanged handwritten letters, and learned to guard their growing affection from the world's curiosity. Meghan continued filming suits in Toronto while Harry made quiet trips across the Atlantic to see her. They spent holidays together under different skies, far from palaces and red carpets. The romance blossomed in private, the kind of love that grows not from luxury but from sincerity. They cooked dinner together, shared jokes about everyday life, and watched old movies side by side. Meghan later said, "We had time to just be ourselves before the world found out." Those moments of peace would soon feel precious, for when the press finally discovered their relationship, their quiet world would never be the same. But for that brief season, love was simple. A prince and an actress, two people who found, in each other, not a fairy tale, but something far more real, understanding. It happened sooner than either of them expected. In October 2016, British tabloids broke the story: Prince Harry in love with American actress Meghan Markle. Within hours, Meghan's life changed forever. Reporters surrounded her Toronto apartment, helicopters hovered above her set, and photographers followed her every step. What had been a private romance suddenly became an international sensation. The tone of the press was often cruel. They dissected her past, her family, even her ethnicity. For the first time, Meghan faced the darker side of fame, the invasive, relentless scrutiny of the British tabloids. Harry, furious and protective, issued a rare public statement defending her, calling out the racial undertones and sexism in the coverage. It was an unprecedented move for a royal. For Meghan, his words meant the world, proof that he would stand by her even against the establishment. But the pressure didn't stop. Strangers on the internet debated her character, gossip columns twisted her words, and private moments became front-page headlines. Meghan tried to stay calm, reminding herself that storms pass. Yet she couldn't ignore the reality: her life, as she knew it, was gone. Still, love held firm. The couple grew even closer, united not by glamour but by adversity. What could have broken them instead made them unshakable. When Meghan began spending time at Kensington Palace, she entered a world centuries apart from her own. Royal life came with rules: when to curtsy, how to sit, what colors to wear. Even her nail polish was questioned. Every movement was measured, every gesture analyzed. She had to learn protocols that most people never imagine. But Meghan's natural poise helped her adapt. Behind closed doors, she practiced curtsying, learned royal table manners, and studied the history of her new family. Yet no etiquette book could prepare her for the invisible expectations, the pressure to fit into centuries of tradition. She was not born into privilege, and that made her both fascinating and threatening to those who valued hierarchy. Meghan borrowed warmth, laughter, and modern energy, but also a quiet defiance. She smiled through whispers, knowing some saw her as too confident, too outspoken, too American. Still, she chose grace over confrontation. For Harry, watching her navigate palace life with dignity only deepened his admiration. He saw in Meghan not a rebel, but a woman trying to belong without losing herself. On a quiet night in late 2017, inside their cozy Nottingham cottage at Kensington Palace, Harry prepared a simple dinner. There were no trumpets, no diamonds displayed under chandeliers, only roast chicken, candlelight, and laughter. As Meghan stirred the pot, Harry suddenly went down on one knee. She gasped, then laughed, then cried. Yes, she said, before he even finished asking. It was, by all accounts, one of the most intimate proposals in royal history. Just two people promising forever, without witnesses or formality. When they announced their engagement to the world a few weeks later, the reaction was electric. Crowds cheered, news outlets exploded, and the ring, made with diamonds from Princess Diana's collection, became a symbol of continuity between past and present. Meghan, radiant in a white coat, held Harry's hand as flashbulbs flickered. Their smiles told a story. They believed love could rewrite the rules of the monarchy. For a moment, the world agreed. On May 19, 2018, Windsor Castle became the stage for a love story the whole world wanted to believe in. Over 2 billion people watched as Meghan walked down the aisle of St. George's Chapel in a gown of pure white silk, designed by Givenchy. The veil, embroidered with flowers representing all 53 nations of the Commonwealth, floated like a prayer behind her. The music swelled as Prince Charles escorted her part of the way, and Harry's eyes filled with emotion. "You look amazing," he whispered. The ceremony blended tradition and modernity. A gospel choir sang, "Stand by Me," and an American bishop spoke about love transcending boundaries. It was a royal wedding unlike any other. A celebration not just of two people, but of a changing world. Outside, crowds waved flags and cried tears of joy. Inside, Meghan became the Duchess of Sussex, a title, yes, but also a new chapter. In that moment, it seemed that every challenge, every headline, every judgment had led to this single, radiant day. As the royal carriage rolled through Windsor's sunlit streets, cheers echoed from every corner. The world saw a modern fairy tale, the actress who had become a duchess, the prince who followed his heart. Yet even as she smiled and waved, Meghan must have sensed that fairy tales are rarely as simple as they seem. The crowds would fade, but the cameras would not. The expectations, the rules, the whispers, they would follow her into every room. Still, on that day, none of it mattered. What mattered was the promise they made, the unity of two very different worlds. Meghan's journey from a modest Los Angeles childhood to the grandeur of Windsor Castle was more than a love story. It was a symbol of change, courage, and hope. To many, especially women watching from afar, she embodied something powerful, the idea that grace and resilience could triumph over doubt. The story of Meghan Markle had only just begun, and though storms were waiting on the horizon, her heart, that day, was filled only with light.